Okie dokie roki. Friendly reminder, the best way to participate in the conversation is to go to @JordanRCrook and press the follow button on Twitter. And we are just going to head right into our next panel. Who likes robots? Wait, better question. Who's afraid of robots? You guys are always going to be a mystery to me. All right, let's welcome to the stage Melonee Wise with Fetch Robotics and our moderator, Devin Coldeway.
Nicely done. So this was just following you, right?
Yeah,
you were driving it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to like you.
Yeah, we're good friends.
And this is a warehouse bot. It lives in a warehouse, it works in a warehouse. So why warehouse bots? You've worked on humanoid robots, general purpose robot operating systems, all kinds of stuff. So why warehouse bots and why now?
Oh, because warehouses are the place to be. They're semi-structured. So what that means is there's rules. In your home, you can do whatever you want. I mean, you can leave your clothes on the floor, you can do all sorts of things. In medical devices, there's a lot of restrictions, there's a lot of barriers. It takes a long time to get into that field with robots. But with warehouses, it's semi-structured. There's an opportunity to work with people closely to do a specific task and really get value for the business. And the industry is very large and it's ready for automation. There's a lot of open jobs that aren't being filled today in the logistics space, 600,000. And so every time someone doesn't show up to do their job, they're losing efficiency. And so by supplementing with robots, they can continue.
And your choice to get into the warehouse bot space had anything to do with Kiva being bought for $750 million?
No, that's a funny question. I would say no. Well, I mean, in some ways we're doing a lot of different robots. Our robots are significantly different. It does help that there was a success in this space, but robotics really haven't had that many big unicorn. I don't even think there's been a unicorn robotics company. So it wasn't like I did it because I wanted money. I would have done apps or something if I wanted to.
Good idea.
Yeah.
You should go for it. But how do you avoid? How do you differentiate? With the robot space, it's kind of hard to say. It's a warehouse bot. It's kind of hard to differentiate from the existing offerings, or at least to investors or consumers.
Yeah, it's actually very difficult because if you look at, and this is somewhat my fault because I ended up working on a very large open source project for 6 years that basically enabled people to bootstrap their companies very rapidly to build robots and then give fancy demos and then raise money on that. And it's really hard to distinguish what is just the basic open source stack and someone who's actually leveraged that stack to do something really interesting and cool. And I think it's a big challenge right now for investors and even our customers evaluating our product.
But things are advancing pretty quickly. And of course, a robot is really just an assemblage of interesting little parts that all fit together. It's a computer with a body, sort of.
Yeah.
But what is advancing the robot space right now? Is it like LiDAR on a chip? Is it computer vision algorithms coming out of universities?
Yeah, I would say that if you look at some of the things that we're doing right now in robotics, a lot of the basic concepts and ideas were kind of formulated in the early 2000s, but processing power has finally caught up, and then the sensor technology associated with that has caught up and become lower cost, and autonomous cars have really helped lower the cost of the sensors that we use in our robot. But there's still a long ways to go in terms of cost reduction.
And what are you guys doing at Fetch to advance the ball? Like, what is some of the, obviously you can't tell me your big skunk works, or you can. I mean, feel free.
Yeah, sure. Well, so if you look at what we've really worked on specifically with our product, it's it's being able to map very large facilities. It's actually still a very hard problem for
And what's
robots.
very large?
A million square feet, 2 million square
yeah.
feet. Yeah, that's very large. If you look at the open source software that's available today, you can maybe map 20,000 square feet. So we're talking about several orders of magnitude of capability. In terms of interaction with the robots, human-robot interaction, or HMIs, human-machine interaction, what we've really enabled is people who don't have technology backgrounds to really be able to command the robots, tell them what to do. So we've created a web interface that allows, and someone who basically all they know about computers is a browser,
Yeah.
and do things with our robots effectively. And that's been a big investment within our team to do that. And then, of course, all the basic robot stuff, you know, navigating,
Oh, all the
blah,
basic
blah, blah,
robot stuff,
following people.
All that
Yeah,
boring stuff.
But actually, you know, it's really funny. We have a really great robotics team, and so, you know, I always thought solving the robotics problems were going to be the hard thing when doing a robotics startup. And no, the hard stuff is like enabling people who know nothing about computers or robots to use them.
Well, if robots are computers, and computers only as good as its user, right?
Yeah.
And so what else is, you mentioned mapping very large facilities. Obviously the robot doesn't just go around sort of naked like this. It has things that come out of it, sensors. I saw there was a big old pole that has sensors all over it. Like what does it do exactly? Like how many, give me some cool numbers on like thousands of, you know, rotations per second of this and that.
Okay, well, so if you look at our robots and applications, they typically have shelves on them because they're moving goods around within a warehouse, or they have RFID antennas or other sensors. But the robot basically comes with a 2D laser scanner, which is in this part here, and then right here is a 3D time-of-flight camera. And those two sensors basically give us the ability to see all of the world instead of just a slice, because typically a lot of robotics use just the 2D laser scanner, so they can only see a thin slice of the environment. But when we use the robots in applications, we're on average, I think we're running 30 kilometers a day per robot, so we're driving a lot. We're driving more than people walk, I can tell you that. And so that's always exciting to see the data coming back and seeing how much the robots are being utilized.
And there's been a lot of talk, there's been talk already today in some of the panels about humans and robots or artificial intelligences interacting. How do you address that space? Like, do you have to worry about workers in the warehouse being afraid of the robot, like it's going to crash into them or snip their head off, or?
Yeah, so there's definitely safety standards that govern how robots are supposed to behave around people. It's still an evolving standard because our robots are called collaborative robots, and that standard is still actually evolving. It's actually not a fully formalized standard. But
have you started saying Cobots? Is that what they?
Yeah, I guess we could call them Cobots. Yeah.
Well, somebody else did. I didn't make that up, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure someone else did. Acronyms and everything are flying around like crazy. But I think that when you look at when people first start, you know, interacting with the robot, there's definitely some hesitation. They're like, oh, what is this going to do? You know, is it going to run over my foot? Is it going to, you know, talk to me? What's it going to do? And once they get the hang of it, they, you know, tell the robot what to do, and it goes on its merry way, and it starts working with them for a while. What we typically see is someone who hasn't been working with the robot for a while, because typically we roll the robots out in facilities in stages. You'll be there, you know, working with the customer and talking to them, and someone will come up to you and say, so when do I get to use the robot?
Yeah.
When do I get one? And so it's a pretty quick evolution from, ooh, robots to, I want one.
Right, and this is actually something. There's a certain narrative when it comes to artificial intelligence and robots, and maybe we owe it to the Terminator or various other media. But like, you're a skeptic of the sort of AI apocalypse that we sometimes talk about as if it's happening right now or imminent.
Well, I mean, the PR campaign against robots has got like a 80-year head start.
The war against robots.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't even, so one of the first, maybe what you could consider robots was built in 1950, And 30 years before that was the first movie showing robots taking their jobs and killing people. So, and the first robot that was built was like a little turtle robot that chased a candle. I mean,
That sounds cool, actually.
yeah, it was totally cool. But, I mean, the media campaign against robots has been pretty strong, but I think that when you look at robots, they're doing tasks. They're not, I guess, they're the physical manifestation of automation, but it's no different than a computer or a typewriter or anything else that's come before it, you know, the auto loom and things like that. And so people look at robots and they say, oh, jobs, you know, AI taking over the world, but it's really just automation. And we have a lot of control over that. I mean, remember, someone has to program these things, and prescience or sentience within a computer, I don't think is coming anytime in my lifetime. And maybe I'm just a real pessimist.
They'll come for you first.
Yeah, they probably will.
But AI can still be a threat, sort of in the opposite direction. If we think that a computer or a robot is smarter than it is capable of doing things that it is, then and we trust it to do those things, we've made a mistake, obviously.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of studies on this about people's relationship with robots, and they've done a lot of studies where people, if they have an initial impression that the robot is smarter than them, so a robot is taller, it looks more human-like, it presents a physical presence, people have the tendency to think, oh, the robot's smarter, and so they trust the robot to do things. And this can be a bad situation in a safety-critical situation where a person puts a lot of trust in the robot to do something that their life depends on.
Right, so care robots and medical things.
Care robots, autonomous cars, and if you don't know the technology, if you don't know whether it's going to do what it's supposed to, that can be dangerous.
And so, do you think that Tesla was irresponsible to deploy Autopilot the way it did? I mean, I'm not trying to get you to throw them under the bus, but you know, is it irresponsible? You can throw them under the bus, but
I think that's a hard question, but I would say that if you look at the way the car industry has behaved over the last 30 years, and to start, there's no actual regulation on many of the things that are in your car today, like cruise control, like braking, ABS braking or whatever. So I think that there's this long history of people letting there be soak time and testing and things like that. And some countries are coming up with more formalized testing. And with the complexity of these systems, I think that's the direction we need to start going, is we need to have more serious validation against these algorithms, because it only takes one mistake to kill someone.
yeah.
And of course, you're technically going to save more lives, I guess, in the long run, but still, do you want to be the programmer responsible for one death?
Yeah, that's rough. And and how do we as the people on this end of the robot, how do we learn to trust them? Is there, like, does it start in warehouses and move out to retail stores or streets, you know, delivery bots and things? Like, how do we learn to develop that relationship with robots? It sounds weird to say, but we're living in the future here. How do we develop a relationship with robots?
Well, I think that relationship is probably going to develop the same way you know, most consumer product relationships develop. You know, Ralph Nader came up with, you know, unsafe at any speed, right, and changed how we consume, and looked at, like, you know, should we be trusting people with these to give us these devices and assume that they're safe? And I think until you have the personal experience with these devices and the community knowledge that this device is safe and isn't going to harm you, I don't think there's any one big, like, solution.
Right.
We're gonna suddenly love robots.
Right. And so now, on stage today and throughout the conference, there's been a lot of talk about equality and inclusion, things like that. Now, you were good at math as a kid, right?
Yeah, of course.
Me too. No, it's like, but you had a supportive family that was, and you had all the tools that you needed to pursue that passion and that talent that you had. Do you think that, like, young girls in the U.S. have that right now? Or is there?
Well, I wouldn't say I had the most supportive family. I had an uncle who told me I'd never get married because I got a master's degree, but that's neither here nor there. I think that's one symptom of the greater problem that you see in the United States is there's this mismatch between culture and alignment with seeing women become empowered. We have pink toys. What are we teaching young girls when we give them pink toys? We're teaching them that they need a different tool than guys do. Why would you need a pink Lego? Legos are Legos, and so you start that biasing and that cultural crippling in my mind very early, and it just progresses and it creates, I think, a continuing pattern where women are taught that they need different things to be successful, and I think that also teaches the counterpoint to the other half of the table, which is, well, women need different things to be successful.
Right.
And
we all learned that lesson one way or another.
But I would say that it's not all is lost. I mean, coming from the Midwest to Silicon Valley, I was like, oh my God, Holy Land, men who actually really respect me and what I do. Because the Midwest, this place is awesome. I love the Silicon Valley. Like, there's just a lot of mutual respect, and it's incredible.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And what are you doing anything specific at Fetch to include, to attract female engineers, STEM, anything like that, or sponsoring, this or that program in a...
Yeah, well, so we have a very large internship program, and that allows us to evaluate candidates on a longer time span, which is very useful. Robotics is a slice of a slice when you look at the field. So engineers, maybe 10% on the wide set of judgment is women, and then within robotics, which is a slice of that slice, maybe 5% of that are women. And so even getting the applicants, maybe every 1 out of every 100 applicants is a woman. And so it's really hard to even find these applicants, but we're doing pretty well. Of our engineering team, our software engineering team, we have 3 women and I think 17 or 18 men. But I think it's a little bit easier being a woman CEO because it's easier for us to attract women, I think, in general, because I mean, I've been in situations at other companies where people are like, will this company even hire women? And it's like, why would you even ask that question? but the question's there. So obviously there's some kind of messaging that says, oh, I shouldn't apply. And we've been getting applicants, and so they're obviously applying. And I don't know if it's above or below the norm, but it's led us to hire some very talented young women.
Good. And do you still code? Like, do you still get down into the lab and tinker and use the wrenches and whatever you use to make robots?
That's a great question. Well, so the first 3 months of Fetch, myself and one of our co-founders, Eric, he and I designed both the robots mechanically from end to end. And so that was like the engineering work that I did. And then I did some programming of some other stuff early on, and there's still code of mine in our code base that's still running on the product, but I don't get to play anymore.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
What would you be working on if you could?
Oh man.
If you had all the resources of your company and you selfishly directed them at your personal project.
My pet project?
Yeah.
Huh.
A pet robot.
Well, yeah, I'm going to take this one home. I would say that, I mean, my first love is control systems, so I would work on things that make arms run really ridiculously fast. And it has nothing to do with our product, so you don't want to let me have my own way because our company wouldn't be successful.
And we're running out of time here, but I'll ask you a really complex question that has no real answer.
Okay, great.
Is it a mistake to try to replace humans? I mean, in the factory, as opposed to augmenting them.
Yeah. Do you have parts of your job that you wish you didn't have to do?
No, I love every minute.
I'm sure. Isn't that awesome? So what if I told you that magically I could give you this machine that took away all the pain And
All the pain?
okay, but well, I mean, I'm not
No, I know what you
prescribing opium or anything, but what I'm saying is if I could give you a mechanical device with software, or potentially even just software, that did all the crappy tasks that you don't want to do, would you take it?
Yeah, I'd take it in a second.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then am I training my successor?
No, I doubt that because art and creativity are always going to be something that we appreciate, and we're very unique. I mean, robots, that's one of the hardest things to capture in machines is uniqueness and our creative expression. But I would say that really robots are going to be taking over the dull, dirty, and dangerous, and that's a really good thing. Because a lot of people don't want to be doing these jobs anyway. That's why there's 600,000 jobs that are going unfilled. You know, that represents, I think, something like 1/10 of all the open jobs in the United States. So,
Well, dull, dirty, and dangerous, not my job, fortunately. But,
but I bet there's
I might
parts.
try it. Well, on that note, let's,
All
I
of
guess,
course. Yeah.
will it follow you?
All right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Nice talking. Thank you.